Today we're going to build a car camping bed and storage platform. I currently have an SUV, but installing this in a van should work, and I think even some aspects of it could be useful in a small car. This is a SwingAway hitch carrier frame that's made in Oregon that I mounted a truck bed style toolbox on. And I'll be making a separate video all about this Hitch Kitchen cargo box setup. The dual hinge compartments give us a lot of easily accessible storage below the bed level. I usually keep food and kitchen stuff in the back and extra water tools and clothes up front. And our camp chairs fit right beside the frame's 2x6s. I can carry up to about 120 pounds in the hitch box. I torch burned a piece of plywood to use as our kitchen countertop. Here, my son and I are set up camping at Big Bend National Park. We can also lift the hatch, put up a tarp, close the hitch box, and use that as a cooktop or work surface. For this build, I'm using reclaimed material from a recording studio teardown we did in 2019. The process of removing the seats won't be exactly the same for all of us, but they should all have 4 bolts connecting them to the chassis, and we'll use them to lay out and attach the bed frame. Once the seats are out, it's a good idea to replace the bolts in the holes that you just removed them from. This will keep them from getting lost, and you can step back and visualize the layout for connecting the base frame. Here's a quick sketched overview of the build. The floor of my SUV slightly tapers from the rear to the front. These 2 slight drops need to be leveled out in order to have a good sleeping surface. Using the chassis crossbeam where the middle row seats were mounted, we'll bolt a 2x4 support riser. The space of that gap in my 08 Sequoia is exactly 1.5 inches, so in my case, a 2x4 works perfectly. Now we have it good and level. And here you can see the gap that we made up for with that 2x4 support riser. This is the furthest forward tapered drop down just behind the front seats. Here's the side view of the main 2x6s of the bed frame. There was another small taper on my vehicle that I had to notch out of the rear of the frame. Every vehicle will have slightly different measurements. The 2x6s I needed were 78 inches long. Measuring from behind the front seats to as far back as you want the bed to extend, you'll come up with the right length for your 2x6s. Let's get those measured and cut. Now for the crossboards. Mine needed to be 34.5 inches. This will be our main base frame. We're going to strengthen each joint by applying wood glue to them before we screw it together. Here I measured and I'm marking out the center brace so it's evenly spaced inside both 2x6s. Pre-drilling with a smaller diameter bit than the screws you're using will help keep the boards from splitting. Using these long 3.5-inch screws will make it a very sturdy frame. I'm using 3.5-inch screws for the 2x6s and 1.5-inch to attach the bed slats later. I try to countersink each screw head about 1/16 of an inch. You may get some glue squeezed out the side of each joint. For my build I'm using 2x6s, but you could also use 2x8s, 10s or 12s, and that'll give you more cubic feet of space below your bed, but also reduce the headroom. Now that we have a sturdy frame built, we're going to work on the dual hinge wings for each storage compartment. The size of the two storage spaces are basically decided by you and your vehicle. The crossboard that we'll attach the hinges to, I just put right down the middle. We're going to use 2x2s to make two square frames that will rest inside each storage section of the base frame. And this is where we'll attach the top slat boards for the bed platform. We'll build these smaller inner frames by using wood glue and one 3.5-inch screw. Lay out your 2x2s and measure the inside of each storage compartment. And now we'll screw the 2x2s together, remembering to pre-drill the ends so the boards don't split, and to apply wood glue. After you've made two of these, we'll attach them to the middle crossboard with hinges. The spacing and placement of the hinges will be different for each build. I'm using a pretty random mix of reclaimed hinges from my collection. And having a mini sledgehammer around is a great way to be able to customize many different things. Moving on to the slat boards, we're going to attach them with our 1.5-inch screws, making sure we don't attach them to the outer frame, but to the inner 2x2 frame. Leave enough of a gap on the end so that the last slat board rests on top of the outer base frame. You could cut and use some 1x2 spacers to help lay out and install them. This makes for a quick assembly. The overall width of the platform and slat boards is going to be determined by the dimensions of your own vehicle. In a lot of cars and in my SUV, it tapers more narrowly towards the back, so these rear boards are going to be shorter than the ones up near the doors. To avoid having a gap or a dip over the center board, you can cut and fit some 1x2s and attach those to the inner 2x2 slat frame. Continue installing the boards on the second 2x2 frame. You can trim and even out the end of the slats with a board or string line and saw. Before we install the platform, we need to attach the cross brace to the frame. I'm using a Simpson roofing tie clip that I have left over from a previous build, and I drilled some of them out to make space for the bolts. I would look for Simpson ties or other strong L brackets, they should work. Once you have the spacing and brackets set up, let's get the cross brace attached. In order to keep the step moldings attached at the door entrances, try to make the cross brace fit just between them. I'm also using the same L bracket truss clips to attach the 2x6s of the base frame to the cross brace. And here I'm just inside the hatchback, installing the rear of the platform with the existing third row seat bolts. And these are the same Simpson tie clips from earlier. So I haven't decided what to use as a liner or insulation after the build. Maybe green or orange shag carpeting or Reflectix, unless there are some better suggestions. I want to point out that my inner 2x2 frame for the front section is shorter and doesn't fully reach the end of the frame. That's to allow the front compartment to open all the way without hitting the back of the front seats. You may or may not have to do that depending on your dimensions. So that's it. Good luck on your build. I'll be adding more DIY and camping stuff on my channel soon, so please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful.